जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जन रंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी तीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 राम हरे हरे जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमाद एसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमाद भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचल श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की, श्री वृंदावन धाम की, श्री मथुरा धाम की, मायापुर धाम की, जगन्नाथपुरी क्षेत्र धाम की, गंगमाय यमुनामाय की, भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की, सामवेद भक्त वृंद की, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. I don't sing, but you can sing. Sing. Bolo. Okay. So, Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. We're reading from the 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, 15th chapter, titled The Kingdom of God. Reading from the 19th verse. Mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti. Repeat after me. Mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa Mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti. Go on chanting forever. Mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti Anyone else? Mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa. punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ. gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā. yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti. Mandara, mandara flower. Kunda flower. Kuraba, utpala, campaka, arṇa, punnāga, nāgakeśara, bakula, ambuja, lily, pārijāta, gandhe, fragrance, arcite, being worshipped, tulasikā, tulasī, ābharaṇena, with the garland, tasyāḥ, of her, yasmin, in which Vaikuṇṭha, tapaḥ, austerity, su-manasaḥ, good-minded, Vaikuṇṭha-minded, bahu, very much, mānayanti, glorify. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Sorry. Although flowering plants like the mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa, utpala, campaka, arṇa, punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ, bakula, lily, and pārijāta are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by tulasī, for tulasī is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with tulasī leaves. Repeat after me. Although flowering plants like the mandāra, kunda, kurabaka, utpala, campaka, arṇa, punnāga, nāgakeśara, bakula, lily, and pārijāta are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by tulasī, for tulasī is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with tulasī leaves. Purport. The importance of tulasī leaves is very clearly mentioned here. Tulasī plants and their leaves are very important in devotional service. Devotees are recommended to water the tulasī tree every day and collect the leaves to worship the Lord. One time an atheistic Swami remarked, "What is the use of watering the tulasī plant? It is better to water eggplant. By watering the eggplant, one can get some fruits. But what is the use of watering the tulasī?" These foolish creatures, unacquainted with devotional service, sometimes play havoc with the education of people in general. The most important thing about the spiritual world is that there is no envy among the devotees there. This is true even among the flowers, which are all conscious of the greatness of tulasī. In the Vaikuṇṭha world, entered by the four Kumaras, even the birds and flowers are conscious of service to the Lord. Om ajñānatimirandhasya jñānanjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathang Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padang Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhang Vitangscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha patitānām pāvanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. mandāra-kunda-kurabotpala-campakārṇa punnāga-nāga-bakulāmbuja-pārijātāḥ gandhe rcite tulasikābharaṇena tasyā yasmiṁs tapaḥ sumanaso bahu mānayanti. Although flowering plants like the mandara, kunda, kurabaka, utpala, campaka, arṇa, punnāga-nāga-keśara, bakula, lily, and pārijāta are full of transcendental fragrance, they are still conscious of the austerities performed by tulasī. For tulasī is given special preference by the Lord, who garlands himself with tulasī leaves. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Before I start speaking on this verse, I'd like to get all your blessings so I may speak something in line of Shastra, Sadhu, and thank you. So, this verse and the previous few verses are being described by Lord Brahma to the demigods who are in distress from the darkness that has enveloped the totality of this universe due to Diti forcefully holding in Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu in her womb. And this lasted for 100 years according to demigod time, so it's a long, long time. And in the previous verse, it was seen that all the birds of Vaikuṇṭha planet paused their ecstatic singing and glorification of the Lord when the bumblebee or the king bee starts to bumble and gives him a chance to glorify the Lord. In this verse, the one we just recited, all the flowers and plants of Vaikuṇṭha planet are also giving Tulasi Maharani the same chance that the birds gave the honeybee, the bumblebee. So these plants are glorifying Tulasi Maharani when she comes forward to perform devotional service to Vishnu, to Krishna. They all take a lower profile and glorify Tulasi Maharani. So basically the last two verses of this chapter, they show the non-enviousness between the living entities in the Vaikuṇṭha world. Now, Vaikuṇṭha world is predominated by the absence of envy, but unlike the material world, all the flowers and the plants of Vaikuṇṭha are all non-envious of one another, especially of Tulasi Maharani. They all give value to the devotional service that she has performed and all the austerities she has undertaken just to please the Supreme Lord. Like they know the value of Tulasi Maharani's austerities. Although Tulasi Maharani is not as colorful or she doesn't smell as nice as all the other flowers and plants, still, she's glorified regardless of this, so to say, lower quality of hers. But it's her devotional service to the Supreme Lord that surpasses her compared to all the other plants and flowers of the Vaikuṇṭha. And actually, when we water Tulasi Maharani in the morning, we can see that she has a distinct and very sweet-smelling smell in the morning time, which she doesn't have throughout the rest of the day. So she does have a nice smell, but not as good as the flowers and trees of the Vaikuṇṭha planets. But that doesn't matter, because Krishna looks at the devotional service of a devotee, not the exterior. So today we'll be talking about how, the different ways in which envy exists in the material world, and we'll discuss a few examples from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we'll try to see how envy can be overcome. Of course, we could talk about envy for a whole eternity and never be finished, but given the time constraints, I think we can discuss something. So, yeah. So, in this material world, everyone is so jealous that if one's personal interest is hampered, everyone will be ready to give trouble to you, even if it's one's brother, mother, father, sister. So what to speak of non-familial relationships? This world, the word kalena means jealous. Everyone in this world is jealous. And it's basically our jealousy of Krishna is what started the cause of envy. Envy started when we decided to become Krishna. Why should Krishna become the only enjoyer? Why not me? So I'm also God. I can also be God. Why only Krishna? So this mentality is what caused all our problems in the material world, and envy is the root cause of all our problems in this world. So basically, our material life starts with enviousness towards Krishna. And once this envy is that we have towards Krishna is portrayed in this material world as our envy towards other living entities. Animal slaughter, animal killing, this whole meat industry. These are all different forms of envy that we have within the core of our heart that started originally when we started to want to become Krishna, to enjoy his supreme position. But we forget that that's not our position. So what happens when one becomes envious? Devotees or non-devotees, everyone, the results of being envious are still the same. Unless one is a pure devotee, that enviousness is different. So we can see in the 4th canto of Daksha and Lord Shiva, when Lord Shiva entered the sacrificial arena, when Daksha entered into the sacrificial arena, Lord Shiva was in transcendental meditation on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he failed to stand up and offer his obeisances to Lord Daksha. So Lord Daksha failed to realize that Lord Shiva was an incarnation. Prajapati Daksha, Prajapati Daksha was, he failed to recognize that Lord Shiva was an incarnation, a guna avatar of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He was directly in contact with the super soul in his heart, and therefore he was in meditation. And this is the reason why Lord Shiva failed to offer his obeisances or respects to Prajapati Daksha. So, of course, when one is so deeply in meditation and in trance, it's hard for them to open their eyes and offer obeisance to every single person walking in. But Daksha didn't even give Lord Shiva this chance because he was so envious of Lord Shiva from the very beginning. He didn't want Sati to marry Lord Shiva, but despite that, she got married to Lord Shiva anyway. But the envy never went away from Daksha's heart. And Srila Prabhupada states in his purport, in one of the verses in the 3rd chapter of the 4th canto, that when one offers respect to the body, it is not the material body, but to the presence of the Supreme Lord. Thus, one who is always in meditation upon the Supreme Lord is always offering him obeisances. But since Daksha was not very elevated, he thought that obeisances were offered to the material body, and because Lord Shiva did not offer respect to his material body, Daksha became envious. Such persons, being unable to rise to the standard of self-realized souls like Lord Shiva, are always envious. So basically, anyone who is not a devotee of the Supreme Lord has a tendency to become envious at all times. And this enviousness will not go away unless one becomes a devotee of the Lord, unless one takes shelter at the Supreme Personality of Godhead's lotus feet. Another example we can see is that regular people in this world, all the atheists, all the asuras, demons, they're always envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They simply want to kill him. How do they want to kill him? By saying to others that when Krishna says, Man mana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mang namaskuru mame veshyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. They think, no, offer obeisances to me, become my devotee, always think of me, to me, as in the person, not to Krishna. So this is basically a form of killing the Lord by saying that they are God, because people should offer them obeisances, not to the Lord. So this is envy. This is envy that is in every materialist's heart. And these asuras, they, without any reason or cause, there is no reason to hate the Supreme Lord. You can just acknowledge him, offer your obeisances, but there's no need for you to go preach to people that you are Lord, you are God, and that they should offer their obeisances to you. So these asuras, they also fail to offer their respects to self-realized people, like the pure devotees of the Lord. They think, why should we offer obeisance to them? I am God myself. Who does he think he is? So this mentality is very deeply ingrained in our hearts, and it's very difficult to overcome it if we don't take shelter of Krishna consciousness. And in the same way, there's another example in the 4th canto where Chitraketu Maharaj and his millions of wives, he had so many wives, but none of them could bear him a son. And then Angira Muni, who was born from the mind of Lord Brahma, came to visit Maharaj Chitraketu's palace. And after Chitraketu glorified Maharaj Angira Muni was pleased with him and offered him a benediction that he would bear a child which would give him both happiness and lamentation at the same time, jubilation and lamentation. So Maharaj Chitraketu's eldest wife, Kritadyuti, bore a son, and all the other co-wives of her became jealous. So why did they become jealous? Because Maharaj Chitraketu's affection for his eldest wife started to grow. Why? Because she was the only one who could bear him a son. All the millions of wives were not doing what he married them for, to give him sons. So the other queens, because of this affinity of Maharaj Chitraketu towards his wife, they became unhappy, and they started to grow their envy because they were being neglected by the king, and Kritadyuti was getting more and more opulent because she was being favored more by the king. And envy got to such a burning point that they poisoned the son, who was just a few months old. They poisoned him, and he died. And they became so hard-hearted that they were unable to tolerate the glory of the eldest wife. So they killed the child. Now, in the material world also we can see, in Kali Yuga we can also see that this is happening every day practically. People are having illicit sex, not taking the conception of sex very seriously according to religion, and just performing it all over the place, all the time, and in the most unregulated and disgusting manners. And the result of such unregulated and illicit sex is that unwanted progeny. Is what Arjuna describes in the 41st verse of the 1st chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. And so what's the solution in Kali Yuga? Abortion. The ladies just pop a pill, or they're forced to pop a pill, or they're forced to kill the child when the child is born. Or in India, in villages, not just villages, even the major cities, if the family members, for example, they want a boy and the mother is bearing a girl, they'll simply push her down the stairs or cause some accident where she will lose her child. So such envy towards other living entities exists in this material world simply because we are envious of the Supreme Lord. That's where it all originates from. And later in the 4th canto as well, in the 16th chapter, we can see when Maharaj Chitraketu is on his way to become self-realized. He's not fully self-realized, but is on his way there. He says to the Supreme Lord, how can a religious system that produces envy of oneself and to others be beneficial for oneself and for them? What is auspicious about following such a system? What is actually to be gained? By causing pain to one's own self due to self-envy and by causing pain to others, one arouses your anger and practices irreligion. So in Kali Yuga, we also see that there's so many religious systems that are practicing various religious rites and rituals, but that system is full of envy. It's envy towards oneself and it's envy towards others. Why is this? Krishna consciousness doesn't have this envy. It's because envy can only be taken away when we take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Now, Prabhupada says that all religions are perfect as long as you follow the principles correctly. But what happens in modern day religions is that we're not following the principles properly. There's the 10 Commandments, there's the Quran, there's the New Testament, Old Testament, all these things, but no one's following them. They're just carrying on their religious principles whimsically, according to their own whims and mentality, or their modes of nature that they're associated with. So this is not Bhagavad Dharma. This is just Kali Yuga Dharma. And that's not approved by the Supreme Lord, because this, he says, Sarva Dharman Parityaja, not just you just do whatever you want, then you can come back to me. No, you have to give up all your duties and all your religious systems, and then you can come to me. And he will take care of you. It's not that he says, oh, you come to me, take a big risk, come to me, and then I'll leave you hanging. No, he'll take care of you. He promises that. Ma-shucaha. So we see that in certain parts of the world, in certain religions, they sacrifice a lot of animals for whatever excuses they give. Like they say that, oh, it states in the Vedas that animals should be sacrificed. So that's fine. It does say that in the Vedas, but it's to regulate meat eating. It's not that the Vedas say you can kill as many animals as you want, and then all good, you can come back to me. No, it says for people in ignorance and passion, those who cannot give up meat eating, it's to regulate them. Like for Kali Puja, the followers of Kali, they offer meat at a certain time of the month, the actual followers. But in Kali Yuga, everyone's just doing what they want to do. So religion has just become some like fun thing that you do. It's like, oh, I'm just going to go do this today. I feel like doing this. I'm going to do that today. There is no one's following the rules and regulation. And this is not Bhagavad Dharma. And this is not pleasing Krishna. And it is not pleasing the devotees of Krishna either. And that's why the devotees are preaching the Krishna conscious movement so hard. That's why it's important that this Krishna consciousness movement established by Srila Prabhupada continues, so that, of course, it's impossible to make everyone Krishna conscious in this world, but just the fact that this movement exists is enough to purify the world at some point. And we still have 9,500 years left, so there's a long time to go, and I'm sure this movement will be able to make a significant impact in the influence of Kali Yuga. There's another verse in the 13th chapter of the 5th canto which describes the struggle of existence. So it says, sometimes the living entity is busy counteracting the natural disturbances of freezing cold, scorching heat, strong wind, excessive rainfall, and so forth. When he is unable to do so, he becomes very unhappy. Sometimes he is cheated in business transactions, one after another. In this way, by cheating, living entities create enmity amongst themselves. This is the 11th verse of the 13th chapter in the 5th canto. And in the purport, Prabhupada says that this is an example of struggle for existence, an attempt to counteract the onslaught of material nature. And this creates enmity in society, and consequently, society is filled with envious people. One person is envious of another, and in this way, and this is the way of the material world. So we've all had experience of this. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, all of us, most definitely me, I've seen that I was envious myself. I still have envy in me. Not perfect, but because I've taken to this Krishna conscious movement, that envy has gone down for sure. It has not gone down completely, but a little bit has gone down. Because this is what devotional service does. It takes away all the envy out of your heart. But people who are out there who do not know anything about devotional service, who are just running day after day, same 9-to-5 jobs, working their body, their blood, their sweat, just to gain momentary satisfaction, they don't realize that they're just being cheated in this material world and there is no happiness, but yet they're envious of one another. If someone gets a promotion, the other person is envious because he got a promotion. He doesn't know that the other person got his promotion because of his karma, because of his hard work. But no, the other person has to feel envious. In the same way, we can also see that children of Kali Yuga are also envious. In kindergarten, we see that children are constantly fighting each other for things that they possess. Like, this is mine, this is my tiffin box, why did you take it? Why did you come first? How dare you come first? This is my position, I'm entitled. I am this, I am that, I should be first, you shouldn't be first. This mentality is ingrained in children from a very young age, and it just gets more and more deeply ingrained in our hearts as these children start to grow older, become teenagers and adults. So envy is very difficult to remove from the hearts if we don't take shelter of the Supreme Lord. So how do we take shelter of the Supreme Lord? Well, one way is that we meditate on the Lord. In the 29th chapter of the 11th canto, the Supreme Lord says, For him who constantly meditates upon my presence within all persons, the bad tendencies of rivalry, envy, and abusiveness, along with false ego, are very quickly destroyed. So in this verse, the Lord is saying that as conditioned souls, we tend to feel rivalry towards our equals. We envy our superiors, and we desire to belittle our subordinates. This is basically the principle of the whole material world. Sorry? Oh. We see that when a new trainee or an intern is joining a company, the seniors basically abuse them, and they make them work more than the 9-10 hours that they're paid to work, and they work crazy hours just because the seniors feel like this is how they're learning. This is the system to learn. But that's not the system to learn. No one learns like that. You just become a robot and you get abused. And we feel envy towards the superiors because while this senior is bullying the junior is feeling envious because why is he doing this to me? I don't deserve this. I'm not going to like him. I'm not going to do what he says. So this is the reciprocative relationship that a junior and a senior have in this material world. But in Krishna consciousness, we see that the younger generation, we try to take shelter of the senior devotees, of all the sannyasis, of all the vanaprasthas, because they have been in this movement for so long. So it only benefits us if we take shelter of them. Not that the seniors abuse us and we are expected to learn from them. That's not a very good system. But in the Krishna conscious movement, it's a very nice system because it's all about mercy. The mercy is coming from up down, and it's also going from up down because by giving mercy to the younger generation, the senior generation is giving service. That's their service to the younger generation, to give them mercy. So they're also getting mercy by giving mercy. So my Guru Maharaj says that this whole movement runs on mercy. It's a mercy movement. There's nothing but mercy in it. The more mercy we get, the more mercy we can give out. But the moment we step out of this movement, this mercy will not exist. So what should we do? We should try to stay in this movement for as long as possible. That's another solution to overcome envy. Because this Krishna consciousness movement aims at creating an atmosphere of non-envy. That's one of the fundamentals of this movement. Of course, it's not possible for everyone to become Krishna conscious, but this movement can create an exemplary society where there is no envy. It's possible. We have the benediction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so this movement is bona fide, it is sanctioned, it will work. So these pure devotees, these pure Bhagavatas, they invite everyone. They want everyone to join this movement. That's their whole movement. That was whole of Prabhupada's movement. He wanted everyone to become Krishna conscious. He wanted everyone to have his books. He wanted everyone to read the Bhagavad Gita. He wanted everyone to read Srimad Bhagavatam. So, because pure devotees like Srila Prabhupada, they want everyone to become Krishna conscious. They are just like the Supreme Lord. Suridam sarva bhutanam. They are friends to everyone. They have no enmity or they don't have animosity towards other people. They simply want everyone to become Krishna conscious. That's why this Krishna consciousness is the best of all religious systems. And this is what Srila Prabhupada says in the 16th chapter of the 6th canto, verse 41. So this movement is what all devotees should stay in for the rest of their lives. They shouldn't look for anything outside this. This movement has everything. There are some hiccups here and there, but there's nothing better than this. Yeah. And if we look at other religious systems really deeply, like really scrutinizingly, we can see that they're full of envy and jealousy. It's just cheating religion, like Prabhupada states. And this is the second verse of the first chapter, first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Dharma projita kaitavotra. Kaitava. This Kaitava cheating religion is not going to liberate anyone. It's just going to bind them further and further into material entanglement. They'll just simply keep taking birth and death, sometimes going up, sometimes going down the planetary systems based on what they did, based on their karma. So how is this a good religious system? You do something bad because of envy, and then you do something good to counteract what you've done because of envy. So basically, this whole thing is founded on envy. Whatever you do is based on envy. I want a better car. I want a new house. I want a new thing. Why? Because you're not happy with you're not happy with what you have. You're unhappy with someone else's progress. That's envy. And that's the reason why we're all in this material world. Simply wanting more and more things that we don't need. So, and those who are jealous in this material world, and those who are not jealous, you can clearly tell who they are. The devotees are non-envious, and the non-devotees are envious. And there's a verse in the 11th canto that says, Bhakti parashanubhava viraktir anyatra syat. Srila Prabhupada quoted this verse so many times. It's like you can test if you're envious or non-envious. Just the same way that when you're eating food, you can feel hunger, nourishment, and satisfaction coming. These two things come automatically. In the same way, you can judge if how you're being non-envious. The indications or the symptoms are that, what was it? I forgot. Sorry. So same way that, direct experience of the Supreme Lord, detachment from other things, and devotion. These three things come automatically when we take the devotional service. In the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly as we take each and every single bite of food that we eat. So in the same way, we understand ourselves, we can feel it. Like if our contemporary or someone of our same level is making more progress, if we're jealous of that, that means we're in the material world. We're not free of envy. But at the same time, if that person is making progress and we're happy for them, then you're not envious. You're in the spiritual world. But of course, our feelings and emotions, they fluctuate throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the year. Sometimes we're in goodness, sometimes we're in passion. So depending on what mode of nature we associate with at that time of what we feel, we can be in the spiritual world or not. But we should constantly strive to not feel envy of others' progress. That doesn't get us anywhere, and that person will still keep progressing, but we won't make any progress. In fact, it'll be counterproductive for us. We'll lose all the progress and we'll just make regress. So this attitude of constantly looking at what other people are doing and more than what you're doing, thinking about others' progress or their success, rather than worrying about how we can make our life successful, that's Maya. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. That only Krishna can be the enjoyer, no one else. And because we want to enjoy, because we are jealous of others' enjoyment, we are in Maya. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Only Krishna is the enjoyer of all sacrifices and of all enjoyment. So we just have to, whatever we do in devotional service, we should just offer all the results to our Guru, to Srila Prabhupada, and to the Supreme Lord. And that's one way to overcome enviousness. Because the moment we think that, I did this today, wow, I'm such a great devotee, you're back in envy again, and you're back in the material world. Whatever progress you did up to there, you went back a step or 2 steps because you just thought that. And a lot of us tend to think that, I did 6 hours of service today. He's only doing 2 hours. Why not? Why is he not doing his 6 hours or 4 hours or whatever it is? But that's not your problem. You just do what you're supposed to do. Well, you worry about yourself. Leave it up to the authorities to deal with what they're doing, if they're doing the 6 hours or not. So we should just focus on ourselves and not focus so much on others' progress and stuff. And lastly, another solution to get rid of envy is to take shelter of Srimati Tulsi Maharani. So I did a little research on Tulsi Maharani because I don't really know much about the glories of her. And this verse made me realize that I should probably know something about Tulsi Maharani a little bit more because she's a very integral part of devotional service. So a few points that I want to talk about is that Tulsi is a plant that's most sacred to Krishna. She's also known as holy basil. That's how the Karmis know Tulsi, although they don't know the significance of Tulsi Maharani. And it's stated in the Brahma Vaivarta Purana that Tulsi, in her last birth, was Vrinda Devi, who was married to an asura named Jalandhar. And to gain victory over Jalandhar, Lord Vishnu persuaded Vrinda Devi to give up her devotion towards her husband. When she did that, Lord Vishnu was very pleased with her, and he blessed her with the name as Tulasī, which means one who can be worshipped by people all over the universe. So in this verse, all the flowers and the trees are appreciating Tulsi Maharani for her austerities. But what are those austerities? One of them is this, that she gave up her devotion to her husband to serve the Supreme Lord. Now in Vedic culture, women are considered chaste and faithful when they serve their husbands properly without being attracted to other men. But in this case, Tulsi Maharani's glories Vrinda Devi's glories were magnified when she left devotion for her husband and directed that devotion toward the Supreme Lord. So this is Krishna consciousness. What is good for someone is not necessarily bad for someone else. What seems good or what seems bad to us is not necessarily bad because it's on a transcendental platform. This Vrinda Devi giving up her husband may seem like, whoa, she's not a good wife. But no, she did it for a higher cause, the supreme cause. So when something gives up something for the supreme cause, they're automatically on a transcendental platform. There is no question of good or bad at that point. So that's why Tulsi becomes so dear to Krishna. So Vrinda Devi she appeared in this world as a Tulsi plant, and she's born on the lunar day of the full moon of the month of Kartik, which is soon coming. Simply by seeing, simply by touching, simply by praying to, or simply by bowing down before, simply by sowing, or simply by hearing about the Tulsi plant, auspiciousness is awakened. Tulsi is Krishna's favorite plant. Every part of Tulsi plant, the leaves, the flowers, the fruits, the roots, the twigs, the skin, and even the soil around the plant is holy. And also in the same Brahma Vaivarta Purana, it is stated that Lord Hari is not so pleased after being bathed with thousands of pots filled with celestial nectar as he is when a single leaf of Tulsi is offered to him. So this is why the Tulsi leaf is so essential for worshipping Lord Krishna. And that's why we have garlands of Tulsi being offered to the deities here. So Tulsi Maharani is not only the remover of sins, but also the giver of spiritual qualities. Now, this means that envy is not a spiritual quality, which means she helps us overcome envy and makes us more spiritual. With her blessings, one can cultivate bhakti and make steady progress in devotional service. Without the blessing of Tulsi Maharani, we cannot make much progress in devotional service, which is why Srila Prabhupada made it so important, made Tulsi worship an integral part of the morning program. That's why we sing the Tulsi Arti every day, just as we sing Guru Puja and Guru Vashtakam. And it's Tulsi Maharani who increases our devotion towards and gives us attachment to devotional service for Krishna. And she never goes back to Godhead because she's always with Godhead. So that's another thing that we should never forget about Tulsi Maharani. She's not a regular plant that we can just grow and neglect. She's from the spiritual world. She's always there. She has just expanded herself and come down here as a regular plant. But we should never forget that she's always in the spiritual world. And she's here to teach us devotional service to Krishna. And she can fulfill all our desires if we just take shelter of her. So if we as devotees take shelter of her, in no time we can overcome envy and jealousy and this dvesha, this raga and dvesha that we have towards one another, towards the Supreme Lord, towards other living entities, towards ourselves. So, Tulsi Maharani ki jai. Also, there's I think we can skip this. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Thank you for lecture. My English is not good, but I try. Which preaching argument most powerful in our mission, according to your opinion? What do you think about it?
Well, depends.
Preaching argument,
Well, that depends on what you're preaching. If it depends on the person you're talking to. If you're like, for example, if I'm speaking to someone who's from India and I'm trying to convince him that demigod worship is pointless, then I wouldn't tell him that you're not this body. That has nothing to do with demigod worship. I would tell him that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that all demigods are part and parcel of him. Some demigods are his hands, some are his legs, some are his head, like that. I wouldn't tell him that, oh, you're not this body, Prabhu, you're a spirit soul. So it depends on time, place, circumstance. But as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarva dharman parityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. That is the best preaching point, for me personally. Like, you should just give up everything and take to Krishna consciousness. That's the whole summary of the Bhagavad Gita. Forget everything and take shelter of Krishna. There's nothing higher than that, and there's nothing lower. There's nothing that equals that. Always think of Krishna, become his devotee, offer him homage, and yeah. Did I answer your question? Or are you asking specifically towards envy?
Partly, yes, it's theory. But I want to know, what do you think? What most powerful argument preaching? For example, achar. Achar, yeah, is good. It's better. Prabhupada said that achar better than philosophy just now. And what do you think about achar as preaching argument?
Okay. Achar and prachar. So we have to preach what we are doing. We should live by what we are preaching, basically. So whatever we're preaching out to other people, we should imbibe that ourselves first. We shouldn't go preaching something that we have not imbibed. But at the same time, we can't wait forever to become realized and transcendental. We have to preach. So just in the name, just because our achar doesn't match our prachar, or our behavior doesn't match what we're preaching, that doesn't mean we stop preaching. We still have to continue preaching. Preaching must go on. So even if you're not perfect, we still have to preach, because that's what Krishna wants from us. That's what Srila Prabhupada wants from us. So in a way, the best argument is one's own behavior, his attitude, his leading by example. Yad yad achariti shreshthas tat tad evetaro janaha. One has to lead. Whatever example one sets, other people will follow. So we have to set good example, and that's the best preaching that we can have. People will become attracted to this movement if we live by what we are preaching.
How we must behave in as example in our Sankirtan, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. We should
always chant the holy names at all times, anywhere and everywhere. Ramar Prabhu will enlighten you more on this, because that's his whole life and soul. Give him the mic. Ramar Prabhu will give you some more tips on this, because that's his whole life and soul. Sankirtan Yajna.
Okay.
If you can give him the mic, he'll tell you.
He is in meditation.
He's wide awake.
Okay, thank you for your question. Thank you for your lecture also.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Krishna.
I have questions.
Please. Thank you. Ignorance. Shila Tattva ki jai. Yes. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Only one thing that you were mentioning about how sometimes when we deal with seniors, we envy seniors, or we are boasting with equals, or we are pushing down juniors. So there's actually a solution mentioned in Bhagavatam. It says, actually instead of envying the superiors, we have to actually respect them. And with equals, we have to develop friendship. And with juniors, we have to be compassionate.
Compassionate, yeah.
It is said when we learn how to deal with these three classes of people, then we are actually, it says, the last line says, na tapayet abhibhuyate. That means then miseries are stopped for such a person. So the miseries that actually come from relationships can easily be dissipated by just following the etiquettes with which we have to deal with others.
This is what Swayambhuva Manu told Dhruva Maharaj.
Yeah, this is actually Narad Muni told Dhruva Maharaj. When Narad Muni tells him to go back, that time he
to go back to
So I had one question. Of course, there were many points. I wanted to know what was reason for Daksha's envy.
You just said it.
Reason?
Yeah.
I didn't hear
Because Daksha was, Lord Shiva was married to Daksha's daughter, Sati, which makes him Daksha's son-in-law. He failed to, he wanted respects from the, son-in-laws are supposed to offer their obeisance to the father-in-laws. Father-in-law didn't know that who the son-in-law was. He thought son-in-law is just a regular son-in-law who dresses in almost naked all the time and travels with hobgoblins and ghosts and all these things. But he didn't know that he's a Shiva Tattva, like Prabhu just said.
Yeah, so therefore I have
And
a
his
more
pride,
broader question.
his pride blocked his intellect.
So the broader question is, you are also talking about envy of the self. So I wanted to ask, what is actually the definition of envy? How do you define envy?
Envy, as Prabhupada states in one of his purports, envy is when we want to become Krishna. That's the beginning of envy. That's how envy starts. Simply we want to enjoy. We want Krishna's position. So when we think that, my spiritual master was describing this in one of his lectures, and he was saying, when we fall down from the spiritual world, it's a three-step process. First, when we have this thought that we want to become like Krishna, we want his position, that's how envy starts. And then from that, we're put in this special place. It's like we're hanging. We're in limbo, where we think that we want this. But Krishna gives us another chance. It's like, do you really want it? And if you think yes, then we fall down into the material world. And that's envy. That's the beginning of our entry into the material world. It's time immemorial. We cannot trace when envy started or how envy was formed.
Yes, but what is the definition of envy? Because we can envy the Supreme Lord, we can envy other living entities, but what is envy?
That's what Prabhupada describes envy as. To want to become Krishna, to want to enjoy his position. That is what envy is. Sorry? Desire to, Icha and Dvesha. Yeah, to enjoy. That's envy, because we're not the enjoyers.
Okay.
And we want to enjoy. When we see someone enjoying, we all want to do that, but we can't do that. We all want to dance with gopis, but we can't. That's not our position, that's his position. That's envy, when we want to become him. Of course, I can give you the dictionary definition of envy, but that's not what, that's...
Again, last question. I also observed you were using the words jealousy and envy interchangeably. So is there any difference, or is it the same?
They're different, but at the same time, they're correlated. You become jealous of someone when you envy them. Oh, I thought you were just throwing them. So you become jealous of someone because you're envious of their progress, or that you don't have what they have. That's jealousy. But where does it come from? It comes from envy. So envy is the root cause of jealousy, anger, lust as well. All these things. Because we want to enjoy, but we cannot enjoy. Any other questions? No? Great. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki jai. प्रजापति दक्ष की जय, लॉर्ड शिवा की जय, सती की जय,